Welcome to the first video in the Leptin for Laymen series. My name is Claire S. Langle, and along with my amazing sister, Dr. Linda Blythe, we're going to take you on a bit of an adventure to help you understand some of the major missing links in your health, and at the centre of all this is a hormone called leptin. In today's video, we will talk a little bit about what leptin is, we will touch on some easy to understand cellular biology, and talk about how leptin interacts with certain parts of your body. As we go through this whole series, you'll come to understand why chronic disease, mental illness, obesity, heart disease, and cancer are rife in our society. And despite the trillions being spent in both the medical and weight loss industries, we're no closer to a solution. Actually, as a society, we are becoming sicker and sicker every decade. So first off, what is leptin? Leptin was first observed in the 1950s when, in our humanness, we were able to breed some mice that were always hungry and soon became morbidly obese. Although it wasn't until 1994 that leptin itself was discovered and named. At that time, it was just thought to be a hunger suppression hormone. In the last 19 years, we have discovered it is so much more than that. The effect leptin has on our body has a massive impact on our health and in ways we could never have anticipated. I promise, what you're going to learn in this series is big, really big. In fact, leptin has been implicated in the most prevalent diseases of the Western world. These include thyroid issues and having either a too fast or too slow metabolism, hypertension or high blood pressure, sleep disorders, insulin resistance and diabetes, dementia and Alzheimer's disease, obesity, infertility, heart and vascular disease, fatigue, both as chronic fatigue syndrome or just general low energy, autoimmune diseases, mental and behavioural disorders like ADHD, depression, autism and schizophrenia, and epithelial cancers. These are your breast, prostate, bowel, bladder and kidney cancers, just to name a few. So what is leptin really? As I mentioned, leptin is a hormone that interacts with all of our cells. Today we will focus mainly on how it relates to your brain, your liver, and your muscles, as these are some of the most important ones. It is a hormone that is produced mostly in your white fat cells, and its release is stimulated by eating. Before you were born, you had this amazing extra organ that performed a number of functions, including that of your lungs, your skin, bowel, and stomach. You had a placenta that did all of these jobs, and it produced leptin for you as well. Now once you became earthside, you needed to start making your own leptin, and at this point, hopefully you were given a big dose with your very first breastfeed. There's a really interesting thing that would have happened in the first 24 hours of your life. As you changed from being in a very stable environment, one that was always warm, always dark, always the same humidity, and where food and hydration were happening constantly, to then go into an environment where there was little stability in the way of temperature, there was day and night with its light and dark, the humidity often changed, and you needed to be able to alter how much food and water you took in to cope with this. So in the first 24 hours of your life, your body had to make some quick calculations and guesses about what sort of world you'd been born into. Taking into account all of these things mentioned above and the composition of your very first food at this time, it was at this point the base number of receptors for your hormonal system were set. The full impact of the first 24 hours of life will become apparent as the series progresses, but keep this fact in the front of your mind. As leptin is a major component of colostrum, during your first breastfeeds, your body started setting itself up to learn how to use leptin and set the base number of receptors in your brain, your liver, muscles, and other tissues. Now when leptin is working the way that it should, you will notice you don't have food cravings, you have loads of energy, bound out of bed every morning without setting the alarm, your body doesn't store excessive amounts of fat, and you produce plenty of free heat, particularly overnight. And all your other hormones are in harmony. So a little bit about how hormones work. They're a little bit like a lock and key system. You need both for anything to happen. You can't unlock a door without a key, and a key with no corresponding lock is useless. The hormone is like the key that floats around in your bloodstream. It fits into the receptor or the lock on the outside of a cell. This tells the cell what it needs to be doing. Now once we used to think that the nucleus of the cell, where our genes are stored, was how the cell knew which functions to perform. Now we know the true activator of cell function is in fact the membrane or the skin on the outside of the cell. functions are stimulated by the outer environment, whether it is prompted by a hormone, a change in temperature, a change in concentration of various salts and chemicals, or even a thought. This is how epigenetics works and why you aren't a victim of your genes, as it is your environment that determines which genes are going to be expressed when. Okay, so now we know a little bit more about cells, let's get back to leptin and how it interacts with various cells. So as I mentioned, leptin is produced in your white fat cells, and it is released into your bloodstream when you eat food. Certain foods stimulate different amounts of leptin, and it hasn't all got to do with the amount of calories. Once in the bloodstream, the leptin is able to cross the blood-brain barrier, and once there, it binds with the leptin receptors on the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is like the hormone control panel. It's the place where the nervous system and the hormonal system meet and work out all the things that are going on in the body and decide the best way to deal with any issues. It is at this point, when leptin binds with the hypothalamus, that leptin tells the brain what the body's energy status is. Think of this as a bit like checking the fuel gauge on your car. If you chucked in, say, $20 of fuel at the petrol station and wanted to know if you had enough to go to the shops, drive past the beach to check out the surf, and maybe stop at a friend's place to have a cuppa before you head home, you could look at the gauge and you would know roughly if you could do all of those things or just some of them. Leptin is like your body's fuel gauge when it binds with your hypothalamus. It tells your brain how much white fat you have stored, so it knows how much energy is available to do things. Inadvertently, this also tells the hypothalamus which hormones to release in which amounts. It is here that leptin becomes the master of the universe, as it controls every other hormonal response and even some of your central nervous system responses. The leptin in your bloodstream also bonds with your liver, letting it know how much of what you just ate can be made available to use straight away by the muscles and how much you need to store to be used up later. Leptin also binds with the muscle cells, communicating with them about how much of their glycogen stores can be used up in movement, letting them know, hey, we've just eaten, we've loads of energy now, you can do whatever you want with your energy stores because we can replace it all later. Liver has said, she's packed with extra glycogen and some cholesterol, we're good to go. Now all this sounds like really great stuff for the body to be able to do and pretty important for your health, so what's the problem then? Subscribe now for free and we'll email you a video each week about leptin, what it does and how much your health depends on knowing about this. In part 2 of Leptin for Laymen, we outline what causes leptin to misbehave, causing you to store excess fat and eventually ruining your health. We talk about the adaptations your body makes to try and fix the leptin situation and how this spirals into more health problems. So sign up today to watch part 2 for free. Thanks for watching.